Gaza and Israel's war machine isn't separate from Britain, right? They're not separate entities. Discovering that these things not only exist, but they're funded by our tax money. They're on our doorsteps. They're in our country. They're down the road from us. A lot of privilege to go to prison in this country. It pales in comparison to what Palestinian prisoners go through every day. 2 people died. People were murdered, essentially by the prison and by the state. They can lock you up. They can ignore your medical needs. They can essentially do whatever they want to you, and then they'll give you mental health leave. They'll give their staff mental health leave when something happens to you. The government locks up people that they don't want the public to see, and it's just a way to kind of uphold inequality against within class and racial lines. It's so hard to just kind of look at a police officer and not be terrified. I will never regret trying to do the right thing.
Earlier this month, 6 Palestine Action activists were acquitted on charges of aggravated burglary following a month-long trial. The charges were in relation to a break-in at a factory belonging to Israel's largest weapons manufacturer, Elbit Systems. 21-year-old Fatema Rajwani is the youngest of the 6. She was also acquitted on additional charges of violent disorder. Fatema and 4 of her co-defendants were granted bail and released after being imprisoned for 18 months on remand, in excess of the UK's standard pre-trial custody time limits. The jury failed to return a verdict on the remaining charges, so the 6 now await trial on charges of criminal damage, with 3 of them facing charges of violent disorder. One of them additionally faces charges of causing grievous bodily harm with intent for striking a police officer with a sledgehammer. Fatema had turned 20 the day before the alleged action targeting the factory took place. She speaks to MEE about that night and what it's like to spend 18 months behind bars. Fatema Zainab, thank you so much for joining us. Could you begin by introducing yourself and tell me what led you to take action at the Elbit Systems factory in August 2024?
Yeah, of course. So I think to start off with, I think it's been so long since the action, over a year and a half, and I think kind of with the trial and all the publicity around it right now, it feels so far removed from its original context, right? Which is that this action took place right in the middle of the genocide. It took place while thousands and thousands of people were being murdered every single day in Gaza, and I was watching people being murdered on my phone every single day. I think a lot of us were. I think it was all over the internet at that point. And I think that for me, at least, protesting protesting in the sense of going to marches, signing petitions, rallies, whatever it was, it had been over 10 months, nothing was stopping, the killing wasn't stopping. And I think also knowing that Gaza and Israel's war machine isn't separate from Britain, right? They're not separate entities. And knowing that, going to these protests, going to these petitions, watching people being murdered every single day, combining those, I think that it all felt so performative. It felt like I was doing this every single day and nothing was changing. The Fulton Action and signing up for an action, signing up to dismantle a weapons factory was very much in the context of all of that. I couldn't sit there or do nothing. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror sometimes, watching people die and not being able to do a single thing about it. Yeah.
Was there a particular moment where you had this realization, or was it something that came on gradually?
I think it's something that came on gradually. I wasn't a particularly kind of activist-y person before the genocide started. My mom used to take me to the yearly protests when I was a kid, that was something that was just like part and parcel of my life, I think. So Palestine has always kind of been very much in the background. And again, learning about the kind of weaponry used in Gaza, the drones that Elbit Systems particularly makes they describe their weapons as battle tested on Palestinians. When they sell it to other countries, they describe it as being tested, as being new, kind of like bizarre, horrific. Their business is inventing new ways of killing people, inventing new ways of doing the absolute uttermost torture before you kill a human being. That is the business of Elbit Systems. And that is the business that the Filton site in Bristol research and develops. Like, when we talk about specific moments, I think it's more knowledge than anything else. I think that learning, that kind of like discovering that these things not only exist, but they're funded by our tax money. They're on our doorsteps. They're in our country. They're down the road from us, and it's that more than anything that kind of took me there.
Thank you. And could you describe what happened on the factory floor that night and how you felt?
It was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life, I think. So we crashed into the site, and we had been told beforehand that kind of like no security guards would come in. I think the six of us were so completely unprepared for what happened that night.
And how did you feel when you knew how long you would be staying in prison?
I guess when my first bail application was rejected, and then my second bail it came in bits and pieces. It was like crushing each time, and it felt like I was never going to be able to leave. It felt like existing in a vacuum. It felt like there wasn't going to be an end to this. Like the government and the state had total control over who I was as a person and over my entire life. And yeah.
What impact did this have on your family?
I think it was really scary for them. Obviously, we're like South Asian immigrants, very, very visibly Muslim family, and I think it put a lot of stress on my family. I won't deny that. But I also think that, my mother is one of the strongest people I know. And after I got arrested, she campaigned for me almost every day. That became her second full-time job. She was out everywhere, Bristol, London, just everywhere, campaigning and just trying to raise awareness.
So from when you were arrested, when was the first conversation and what did you say to each other?
So I only got to speak to her a month after my arrest or something like that, or 2 or 3 weeks. And the first thing I actually said to her was, "Are you mad at me? Are you upset with me?" Those were the first words that came out of my mouth. And it was very strange, I think, just speaking to her in a place that's constantly recorded, constantly monitored, constantly surveilled, and also being away from her for so long. I live at home. Never been away from my family for more than a month or a couple months max. And that stretch of time away and having complete utter silence was just a very strange experience.
Could you describe what prison was like?
I want to start off by saying that prison as an experience, especially, I guess, like being in this country, it still comes with a lot of privilege to go to prison in this country. It pales in comparison to what Palestinian prisoners go through every day. Like that is the basis from which I want to like talk about my prison experience. It pales in comparison to anything else. And when I talk about it through that lens, it kind of like helps me put it into perspective of like, oh, this could have been so much worse. We had officers come into our rooms when I didn't have my hijab on or when I was half dressed. Security officers came in to do book checks to make sure I wasn't reading any radical material. My post, my mail, my property was withheld, lost. Things like confiscated. And it just like worsened after like the prescription of Palestine Action. One of my co-defendants had her hijab snatched off her head by security officers in Bronzefield. It's still a hard thing for me to kind of like process and to talk about. But again, it's very much like existing in a vacuum. It's you get the sense that you're never safe. You're not safe at any point. You could be assaulted by a guard at any point of the day if they feel like starting a fight. I saw people get punched in the face by guards, by officers, or genuinely instigate fights with prisoners. I met so many people there that genuinely just victims of the state that were in there for defending themselves against abusive partners, that were in there under, again, like ridiculous made-up terrorism laws, or because they were drug addicts or because they were in bad situations. I met a girl who was in there for trying to commit suicide, and that is the reality within prisons. That is the reality within the carceral state. It is just somewhere that the government locks up people that they don't want the public to see, and it's just a way to kind of like uphold inequality against like within class and racial lines. And in that way, being in prison, I think, was, I wouldn't say good for me because I don't think prison is good for anybody, but it was a window into just how much it shaped my politics a lot. I will say it shaped, especially within the context of Palestine, within the context of global oppression perpetrated by the British state, how it treats its most vulnerable within the prison system, within the carceral system, is just a reflection of how it treats or how it oppresses people globally. Yeah.
Thank you. And in this context, how did you and your co-defendants support each other?
Right at the beginning, we couldn't talk to each other very much because we had a massive non-association order. We used to slip each other notes, the prison grapevine, essentially. Prisoners would hand each other notes to give to other prisoners who couldn't kind of like communicate with each other. And it was just very much like, I love you, I hope you're okay, I'm proud of you, keep going, we will get through this. And then once we were able to kind of like speak to each other more, get put on the same kind of like wing cell, like wings, spurs, we used to kind of make each other it was very like basic ways of caring for each other. When you're in prison, you can't really give each other gifts, so you can't really kind of like support each other in the ways that you would be able to outside. There's not really any mental health support. There's nothing you can really do. And so a lot of it would just be making each other tea or writing a card, writing a note. It was more community than anything else. It's the idea that none of us are going through this alone. If you spend 10 years in prison, I'm going to be right there with you because I have no other choice. And more than that, it was just a sense of like solidarity, a sense of being there for each other, a sense of like community in your darkest times. Yeah.
Thank you. How has this experience changed you?
I'm a very different person to who I was a year and a half ago. I have a very different view of the state and of the world I live in. I think it's made me so much more aware of like how deep and how horrifying and how oppressive, like, or how deep these structures of oppression go within our government and within our state systems. And I think even just walking around the world now, it's so hard to just kind of like look at a police officer and not be terrified. It's really hard to just hear a police siren and not wonder kind of like which like person they're arresting that doesn't deserve to be arrested. And I still don't know how it's going to affect the rest of my life. I don't know, because obviously I still have an outstanding charge. I don't know how that charge is going to affect the rest of my life. There's obviously such, like, of 2 weeks ago, I thought I was going to spend 10 years in prison. That was what I was prepared for. That was what I was preparing myself for. And now I can't really comprehend how to live my life. And I'm still trying to work out how to move on with my life, or where to go with it, I guess, after everything that's happened. Yeah.
Do you feel you've had to grow up very quickly?
Yeah. I think I had just turned 20. The day of my birthday was the 5th of August. I just turned 20 the day before the action. And I had just finished my second year of university. And I think being used as a scapegoat for the government's political aims makes you grow up very quickly. I think, like, all of us, even the older defendants, like, had to mature very quickly and had to kind of be like, oh, this isn't just like any kind of like normal action. Like, this is something that could ruin our lives in the worst way. This is going to define us for the rest of our lives. And I had to grow up very, very quickly. I had to become my own person and learn how to deal with, like, everything from, like, court systems, legal systems, solicitors, an aggravated burglary charge, prisons, prison guards. All of those things are so much to comprehend, especially when you're that young. And it was just insane, yeah.
How did you feel when you were granted bail?
It felt so surreal. I still can't believe it. I'm still like, it's been a week and a half, or almost 2 weeks exactly tomorrow, and I'm still like, I still can't believe that I just get to be in the world. it's so surreal. It's even hearing that not guilty verdict, I still can't believe it. It's a blessing. It's such a big blessing, and freedom is like an inalienable right of ours as human beings, but it's also something that we take for granted a lot, and something that I definitely took for granted before this. And just walking down the road, going on a train, eating home-cooked food, all of those things are like, they're so surreal, and it's such a massive blessing to be able to like experience it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question.
Yeah.
Do you have any regrets about taking action that night?
I will never regret trying to do the right thing. My intention when I went in that night, and the intention of all of us, was to save human lives. And I will never say that I regret trying to make the world a better place.
Thank you, Fatema.
Thank you.